Welcome back to Trail of Tuesdays, where we wander down history's strangest side paths. Today's detour takes us to Rome in the year 897 for what might just be the weirdest trial in history. Not because of who was on trial, but because he was already dead. This bizarre spectacle is known as the Cadaver Synod, and it remains one of the strangest chapters in papal history. So let's walk this strange path together. The late 1800s were not a calm time for the papacy. Popes rarely lasted long, noble families fought bitterly for influence, and the Holy Roman Empire loomed large in the background. Formosus became pope in 891, and let's just say he made some powerful enemies right from the start. Front and center were the Spoletan family, Lambert of Spoleto and his mother Agiltrude, who weren't exactly sending him Christmas cards. Why, you might wonder? Well, of course, it was about power. The Spoletans were no minor rivals. They controlled the Duchy of Spoleto, one of the strongest territories in central Italy, and Lambert had even been crowned Holy Roman Emperor. Backed by his formidable mother, their family carried both military and political weight, and they expected the papacy to recognize and reinforce that power. But Formosus had other ideas. Upon becoming pope, he threw his support behind Arnulf of Carinthia as emperor, which was basically picking the other team in a very high-stakes political game. And Arnulf wasn't exactly beloved. He had forced out his own uncle to take power. His claim was weakened by being the illegitimate son of a Bavarian noble, and his rule was plagued with wars and shaky authority in Italy. Supporting him was risky, and the Spoletans never forgave Formosus for it. On top of that, critics accused him of being too ambitious, holding onto multiple bishop jobs at once, when church law said you really shouldn't. Basically, it didn't win him any friends inside the church either. So, when Formosus died in 896, the Spoletans saw their chance to wipe his influence away. And the new pope, Pope Stephen VI, was more than willing to play along. But how do you erase the influence of someone who's already dead? Well, for Pope Stephen VI, in January 897, the answer was simple. You put him on trial. And you might be thinking this was some sort of posthumous trial where the defendant is absent and judged in name only. Well, you'd be wrong. Because in order to make the condemnation look official, Formosus had to be there. Well, or at least what was left of him. So, his body was dug up, dressed in full papal robes, and placed on a throne inside the Lateran Basilica, as if he were presiding over his own trial. To complete the theater, a deacon was appointed as his defense attorney. imagine being handed that job. Speak on behalf of a corpse. Not exactly a dream posting. Now, with the macabre spectacle all set, and the charges, which included perjury and illegally becoming pope, laid out clearly, the trial began. What followed was less a legal proceeding and more a grim piece of theatre. Pope Stephen VI stood at the center, shouting accusations at the corpse propped up on his throne. Witnesses were called, but the whole thing was staged. No one ever doubted the outcome. And the deacon, assigned to defend Formosus, could only mutter a few token responses. But it was clear his words didn't matter. The verdict had already been written, and unsurprisingly, the dead Formosus didn't mount much of a defense either. As expected, the trial ended with a guilty verdict. Formosus was stripped of his papal office, and, if the chronicles are to be believed, the 3 fingers he used to bless were cut off before his body was flung into the Tiber River. Now, why do all this? To us, putting a dead pope on trial sounds like pure absurd theatre. But there was a method to this madness. By declaring Formosus illegitimate, Stephen VI could wipe out all of his decisions, every ordination, every appointment, every bishop he had installed. That meant stripping power from Arnulf's allies and reshuffling the church hierarchy to favor the Spoletan faction. It was politics in its rawest form. Erase the man, erase his legacy, and by extension, erase his deed. But while it all made sense on parchment, in practice it was extreme and unusual. And it didn't take long before it all backfired. Because you see, even in a city used to violent politics, the Cadaver Synod pushed things too far. Romans were shocked. It was one thing to fight over power, another to drag a pope's corpse into court and put it on display. According to later accounts, Formosus' body was eventually pulled out of the river by a monk, and rumors spread that it performed miracles. That only fueled the outrage. Crowds turned against Stephen VI, and by the end of 897, the same year he staged the trial, he was deposed, thrown in prison, and strangled to death. His successors wasted no time undoing the damage. Popes Theodore II and John IX restored Formosus' reputation and had him reburied with honor in St. Peter's Basilica. Historians still debate on why Stephen VI went to such grotesque lengths. Was it personal hatred or paranoia? Possibly, but most agree it was simpler than that. Politics and power dressed up as religion. Formosus had simply just backed the wrong emperor, and in the messy power chessboard of the late 1800s, that meant his enemies wanted his memory and influence scrubbed out. The Cadaver Synod reminds us just how unstable the papacy was in that era. Popes weren't always the untouchable figures we picture today. They could be dragged into schemes of noble families and ambitious rulers, even after death. But it also shows the limits. However messy medieval politics came, the Roman people made it clear. Some things were just a step too far, and putting a corpse on trial was one of them. And that's the Cadaver Synod, the day a pope stood trial months after his death. Trail of Tuesdays is where we explore history's strangest detours. And this one might just take the prize. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.